The first time kindly asked me to help the dead speak. My mother was still alive and yelling at a pharmacist. I was in the grocery store in Oakland, standing in front of a refrigerated wall of beverages promising gut health, cellular clarity, and immunity from past traumas, when my phone vibrated with the discreet urgency of paid employment. Nadia Flores, my boss, was calling for the second time in 4 minutes. I had already ignored one call because my mother had texted me, "Please pick up," in the tone of a woman who would never, under ordinary conditions, capitalize need. By the time I answered, I was holding lemons, seltzer, chicken stock, and a rotisserie chicken I had purchased, as if adulthood were a series of persuasive props. "Tell me you're near a laptop," Nadia said without greeting. Her voice always sounded as if she were emerging from a much more expensive room than the one the rest of us occupied. Owen wants language for memorial continuity. He wants it before the board dinner. At Kindly, memorial continuity meant the thing, before the thing got a prettier name. The company had been founded on harder conversations made easier. We wrote breakup texts for cowards, apology frameworks for men in venture capital, compassionate layoffs for people who wanted to feel unusually civilized while they destroyed someone's rent. If you had something difficult to say and no wish to hear yourself saying it, Kindly software would provide a version that sounded almost exactly like the person you hoped you were. We called this support. We called it empowerment. We called it tone confidence. We called it innovation when the numbers needed work. "I'm driving to Sacramento," I told her. "My mother has spent the morning bullying a Rite Aid into locating medication that allegedly exists somewhere in the state of California. I am not near a laptop. I am near a bag of lemons and the end of my patience." There was a pause in which Nadia, who had met my mother once and had never recovered from it, considered whether she was willing to compete with terminal illness. "Can you think in the car?" she asked. In technology, people said things like that, as if thought were a cordless appliance. I only need positioning. Human, premium, not creepy. If I had been a better person, I would have said no. If I had been a wiser one, I would have seen how perfectly the request had found me. Daughter of a dying woman, employee of a company that monetized reluctance, late 30s renter with a mortgage-sized amount of fear and no mortgage to show for it. Instead, I said I would call her back in an hour, because I still believed complicity announced itself with trumpets rather than helpful scheduling accommodations. Well, my mother, Ellen Mercer, had spent 30 years as a court reporter for Sacramento County, and another 5 explaining to strangers that this did not mean she wanted to hear the truth about anyone's divorce. She was 72, metastatic, and still capable of making a healthy adult cry in under 90 seconds if they had mistaken cheerfulness for competence. When I pulled into the pharmacy parking lot, she was at the counter in a navy windbreaker, one hand on her cane, one index finger lifted not in rage but in syntax. She was correcting the pharmacist on the phrase, supply issue. "A supply issue is rain on a wedding," she was saying. "This is you not knowing where my pills are." Max was leaning against the blood pressure machine with the blandly distressed expression he put on whenever our mother embarrassed him in public, which is to say, whenever she remained recognizably herself. He was 34, beautiful in the way unserious men often are, recently transformed from a good bartender into an online evangelist for male resilience. He wore expensive running shoes, a washed black hoodie, and a beard trimmed to suggest hardship under controlled conditions. On the internet, he posted videos about discipline, breathwork, cold showers, and reclaiming your narrative. In person, he still borrowed my phone charger and forgot to send birthday cards. "She's threatening to subpoena inventory," he murmured as I came up beside him. "Good," I said. "Maybe they'll finally answer a question in complete sentences." My mother turned when she heard me. Her face, even after a year of chemo and surgery and medication whose side effects read like Victorian punishments, retained the sharp intelligence that had once terrified substitute teachers and one judge. She gave me the quick once-over mothers reserve for daughters they love enough to inspect. "You look peaky," she said. "Have you been eating kale on purpose again?" She did not hug much in public. Illness had not made her tender so much as exacting about where tenderness ought to go. Instead, she pushed the paper bag of finely secured medication into my hands like evidence. "Read that label," she said. "If they kill me through imprecision, I want witnesses." Outside, The afternoon had the exhausted brightness of inland spring. A row of ornamental pear trees shook themselves in the parking lot wind. Across the street, a mattress store promised better sleep in tones usually reserved for spiritual rebirth. Max offered to drive, by which he meant he intended to lecture us both about inflammation while ignoring directions. I took the keys. My mother settled into the passenger seat with the dignity of a disappointed queen. Max folded himself into the back and immediately began typing into his phone, probably another caption about surrendering your excuses. "Work?" my mother asked once we were on the freeway. "Work," I said. "Still helping cowards outsource apologies?" Now with additional bereavement. She made a sound that contained both contempt and professional curiosity. During the first months of my job, she had enjoyed kindly as a topic because it allowed her to say things like, "The nation is collapsing into templates," and "If your software writes a condolence note, is the casserole next?" She did not distrust technology in the romantic way of people who imagine themselves above it. She distrusted euphemism. She believed every institution in America, from the county clerk's office to the Methodist Church to whatever absurd company I worked for in Oakland, spent most of its time trying to replace what had happened with what sounded manageable. Cancer had only made her harsher on the subject. "When people are scared," she said once, "they start talking like a brochure. That's how you know no one is in charge." At home, she went straight to the kitchen table, where a stenography machine sat under its dust cover, beside 3 legal pads, a chipped bowl of mandarins, and unopened mail enough to suggest a minor siege. My childhood house had become smaller over the years, not because the rooms had changed, but because adulthood kept arriving with more abstractions than furniture. The same crocheted afghan hung over the sofa. The same crack ran down the hall mirror like controlled lightning. Beside them now, pill organizers, appointment schedules under magnets, and a yellow legal pad on which my mother tracked symptoms with the grim wit of a field commander. Sharp left rib, 9:12 a.m., felt biblical. While Max made coffee he would not drink, and I put away groceries she had not asked for. Nadia called again. I took the phone into the backyard, where the grass had mostly given up and the lemon tree was performing optimism on my behalf. "I need 3 frameworks," she said. "One practical, one aspirational, one spiritually adjacent but secular." Owen keeps saying grief is the next loneliness. He wants to own the category without appearing to own the category. From the kitchen I could hear my mother explaining, at volume, that cinnamon did not belong in Chile under any jurisdiction. A crow landed on the fence and looked at me with the administrative patience of a creature that had never apologized for being itself. I thought of the board dinner, the investors, my mother's prescription bottles in their white paper bag, the men who announced they were building for human flourishing while their assistants arranged oat milk. Then, because modern life comes down to what you can bear to betray first, I opened the Notes app and began to type.